Thank you. Shout out to Matisse. If you guys actually want to catch him, he does stream occasionally, I believe. I just don't think he saves the VODs, if I'm not mistaken. And, you know, definitely go follow him on Twitter. So for those that do not know who Matisse is kind of like the gospel of the HRE, right? He's the speaker. He's the clergyman at the front praising the HRE. This guy is an absolute nerd when it comes to HRE. He knows it inside out. He's easily like top 5 HRE players in the world right now, and he can definitely teach you a few things. So you should be listening to him. You should be watching him where you can. At the moment, I believe Matisse isn't in the top 100. I think he's sunk a bit. Okay, just on the edge. He's at 93 right now, 1679 rating, 440 games played, 54% win rate. But he experiments a lot, so that's why that kind of teeters up and down, and he does primarily play the HRE, which means if you're going up against him in a kind of pub matchmaking setting, you can probably easily anticipate what he's going to do, and there's probably a lot of players that are countering the HRE specifically in the games. So, cool thing to look at is this one, by the way, I was able to catch it live, and the importance of this is yay me. It means that I am not going to be spoiled by something I'm hiding up there. I don't know how this is going to end at all. I usually try to keep that detail to a minimum for anyone wondering. I never notice who won or lost, but obviously I have a timer that's telling me how long the game's going to be. So this one could be an hour long, could be 10 minutes. We're going to find out, though. It's going to be against Give Grandmaster Please. For those who can recall, he has featured once on the channel before. If you would like to see how good Juknu can be against England, go check out that video. It wasn't pretty, though. Give Grandmaster Please was begging for a reason for a Grandmaster rank, and it definitely wasn't going to be because he earned it in that one. So let's see if he can earn his stripes in this one against a powerhouse player on this specific Civ. On Highview as well, Highview, a map that can sometimes be accursed and sometimes be a generous blessing from the gods for an HRE player. And in this case, Matisse, well, he must have kissed the ring. Or rather, he's telling Grandmaster to kiss his ring, because look at this. Look at the location on these relics. This is rigged right here. This is definitely how you boost up your win rate as HRE. When you get 3 relics right next to you like this, usually you'll get like 1 in each corner sort of thing. But this one here, not even central, just parked to the side of your base, is going to be a huge boost up for Matisse here. Because remember, as the HRE, one of the most important details about your game is that you get your hands on 3 relics at your castle age, filling up your Regnitz Cathedral, because that Regnitz Cathedral, the landmark you build, what it does is instead of giving you 100 gold per minute per relic banked inside, it gives you 300 gold per minute per relic banked inside, up to a maximum of 3 relics. Meaning you get almost a 1,000 gold surplus coming in a minute. And remember, by the way, the maths that we use to kind of give you an idea of that is that you get about 40 gold per minute without any upgrades. It's around that number, 40 gold per minute per villager. So 200 equals 5. You can see very quickly you're saving almost 25 villages from needing to be on gold. And the importance of this cannot be understated, especially when you're talking about a resource that dries up in the late stage of the game, so it becomes a very finite thing, hard to find. Also, something that we don't tend to think about enough, I think, whether we're watching pros play or playing ourselves, is late game pop balance, right? The population balance. Sometimes you build ridiculous surpluses and you'll switch down, you'll cull 20 villages from your workforce, right, because you can afford to. The whole point is that a lot of Age of Empires 4 leans towards a heavy economy side on the pop count, right? We're talking like 100 to 130, and the whole idea is that most players, instead of them just winning out through kind of a micro-intensive battle, and this is something I wish we could find like a kind of nice mid-ground towards, because I do think that while there's some micro, it's not really as high as a lot of other RTSs, which makes us more accessible, but maybe makes it a little bit less incredible when we watch these clutch plays at high level, is that because the game is more macro-heavy compared to micro-heavy, a lot of these late-game situations, instead of becoming a sheer out-skill, it becomes more about a resource slog, right? Like, oh, I'm going to throw 70 units at you. Oh, you're going to throw 70 units at me. Oh, well, yeah, but I have better resource collection, so I'm going to throw another 70 units at you a little bit quicker. Or I have more military infrastructure. I'm going to throw more at you quicker. And there's no easy way to fix this, right? Like, one argument could be more special abilities, which I would love to see. But the question is, like, what kind of abilities do you have to give to have a similar kind of wow factor to StarCraft? Because we've all seen those moments, right? Even if we aren't like a closer follower of StarCraft, we've all seen those moments where like a player has like the blink in. I can't remember the name of the. I think it might just be blink. Yeah, on the Protoss Stalkers, the units they're able to like blink forward, right? And it gives like a positional play that turns the game around, right? It's like there's not really an equivalent unless we introduce magic into Age of Empires, but maybe you have some sort of, I don't know, grapple hook. Okay, no, I'm going to stop now. This is getting dumb. Maybe we add Japan as a civ and they can build ninjas, and ninjas can grapple hook, which allows them to jump over buildings. Already, I can hear people reeing. Like, stop changing the game, KP. That's not what Age of Empires 4 is. I know. But I'm kind of dreaming about a world in which we have like a differential on like the micro capabilities. Because right now, I think the other problem is because we don't have those type of abilities in surplus, or really at all, it leans itself even heavier into what's happening with the meta right now, which is this ranged heavy meta, right? Of like 70% ranged, 30% melee. And by the way, what a perfect game to show exactly that. One side is building Lombos, surprise, surprise, England. The other one is got a trip archery range drop, and it's just spewing out the pew-pew men. This is what I mean, though. This is a lot of the early game. We have been seeing horsemen occasionally, even after the nerfs making an appearance from time to time. But it's because the way that this game is balanced is like, instead of it being necessarily about like a micro-intensive approach with certain abilities being used that gives you an edge, like those blinks, like a healing factor, these type of things, right? Instead, Age of Empires 4 leans itself a lot more towards a counter system, right? A direct counter system. And we see that in the numbers, right? Where, for example, archers get bonus damage against light melee infantry. So you have to play into this. And it's why I think if you want to improve your Age of Empires gameplay, I talk about things like vision that's very important. I think one of the biggest important things to get on lock is understanding transitions and understanding how to achieve them. Because I think there's no bigger power spike than out-transitioning your opponent. If your opponent's coming at your longbowman and you're already on your way into a horseman, you've already prepped for that off the back of vision, right? That's why these two pair together, and I always just like nerd out, like I'm kind of jizzing over the screen about scouts, right? If you're actually maintaining vision ahead of your opponent and you see what's going to come the next minute or two, and you pivot to transition into that already, and you're prepped when they arrive, that not only allows you to win that battle, that allows you to then push across the field, and you're probably in their base while they're then trying to build the infrastructure to get the counter out to what you've just done, right? And it speaks volumes to the importance of transitions and counterplay, more so than necessarily like needing to out-micro your opponent. Like, we've seen people talk about this before. If we compare AoE 2 and AoE 4, AoE 4 is a lot more macro-intensive compared to the micro-intensive side. Whereas, obviously, AoE 2, especially in the early game, before you get I forget the name. Apologies, AoE2 nerds and veterans, you're going to hate me, but I forget the name of the specific research that gives you homing arrows, right? Whereas in default mode, this game, every shot fired hits, right? So just cool things to think about. And in that macro play situation, it has to be said that, like, HRE, this is where they get their advantages. Like, when you're talking about that macro level, managing your economy, they are going to be more efficient as this game goes on. And in the early game, I love how Matisse kind of all-in, understanding that if he all-ins, his opponent's going to have to keep all-in. And it means that actually England's going to be forced to stay around in the feudal age a lot longer because they can't eco-boom like you can, right? And it's actually a cool concept. And look at this out, Grandmaster, already half farms, half berry. Good job to actually keep up the wood needed, but it means that he's only ever able to field into the longbowman right now. And it makes sense. If you went man-arms would not be able to catch up to the archers. And the problem he has right now is, I think Matisse reaches like 30, 40 archers and then just booms up to castle beyond you. And in the meantime, you're going to have to keep building longbowmen to try and outpace him. You can already see it's 12 longbowmen to 23 archers. That gives the edge because although the longbowmen have more range, the archers move quicker. They can gap close, and then they have the same damage, the same like rate of fire. You can see that I believe it was, yeah. So no blacksmith just yet on both sides. That's now being fixed. So while longbowmen have a slight edge, and I believe the attack speed is exactly the same, it's the fact that you're able to like push out just as many, and they're slightly cheaper, right? It's 30 food, 50 wood compared to the 40 food, 50 wood. And because you have 3 of these archery ranges, you actually outpace your opponent. He's producing a longbowman every 7 seconds. Meanwhile, you're doing it every 15. So if you want to do the maths, if you were to condense this into one, that's 5 seconds to produce. So you're always going to outpace the longbowman player in this situation. And also, when we look at income, this is what we're talking about. Matisse. Wood is up, food is up, gold is up. And at any point, he could, like, if he feels that his opponent is not applying pressure and building more longbowmen, he will stop. And the moment he stops, he will boom past England and get to castle quicker. The cool thing about this approach, by the way, if you're like HRE and you go up against a civ like England that wants to play a lot of feudal aggression, Building this army might seem wasteful. You're really frustrated. I know. You're an HRE player. You probably want to be greedy, right? You want to go ahead and get that Regnitz. You want to be up into L's back. You want to be eco booming, tech booming. You want that Imperial Age at 13 minutes. I get it. But here's the point. Playing to this stage in the game is so much easier and safer, and you'll still outscale. And here's why. It's not just what we talked about with your more efficient economy, because remember, your villages are 40% more efficient, most of them anyway, because they're being inspired by the Arkan Chapel, by the prelates. The other detail to keep in mind here is that if you have this defense force in location, your opponent keeps seeing it, he keeps matching the number, and in the meantime, when you do eventually hit into that Regnitz Cathedral timing, you're going to actually have a military presence to defend your prelates picking them up. And that's incredibly important because remember, the prelates themselves costing 100 gold isn't cheap after that initial tech up because you haven't got your relics yet, right? Gold is still very finite resource for you. The other detail to keep in mind is that not only will you be able to protect those prelates saving you gold initially, you'll make more gold in the long term because instead of having your prelates being sniped out left, right, and center by longbowmen or horsemen or whatever as they run out for these relics, they're going to be guarded, they're going to be efficiently returning those relics, and that means you maybe, compared to being sniped out once or twice, going to get an extra 2-3 minutes of gold per minute timing on that trickle, which, you know, it's 300 gold per relic, so you can see how that adds up. Push in. And straight away, Matisse gets eyeballs on. He's coming in with a secondary force as well. He will outnumber the Longbowman here. That's going to force Grandmaster to back up. He needs to keep pushing out Longbowman, but right now, suffering a little bit on the resource front. He's going to suffer on the count, and that means his economy is going to be exposed as well. But they are in range of the TC now. That gives the attack speed buff down to 1.28 seconds per attack, and that's exactly when Matisse backs up. So 29 archers to the 22 Longbowmen. Now, this was somewhat haphazardly done by Matisse. He was slow to wrap around with a secondary archer force, which means he did get somewhat exposed there, right? He did give over more casualties than he should have. But still ahead on the numbers. And still able to replace quicker. And still able to gather quicker. And now able to go into the pro scouts. And this is the important detail. This is where he's going to boom. This is such a cool way to do this. He had two choices, right? He pushes in, he sees there's not a big enough longbow army, he strikes there, and then he pokes away at the economy, and then replaces the archers just as quickly, but then leaves himself padding to go up into castle. The alternative is that he had to do this, where he had an equal trade, he has to replace the archers, but he has surplus economy to now go get his hands on the stables, grab those scouts, pick up those deer carcasses, and thus gather even quicker. Because remember, you gather quicker from deer than anything on land except from boars by default. And then on top of that, you're gathering even quicker courtesy of that 40% buff speed. And you'll always be safe doing it under your TC in range of the Arkan Chapel, which is giving that 40% increased gather rate and carry capacity. In fact, no wheelbarrow yet either. We'd love to see wheelbarrow. I think wheelbarrow can be worth going back. In this situation, I think Matisse can forgo it. Just ignore it until his castle, because I think that extra gold gets you up 20, 30 seconds sooner, and then you'll make that money back much quicker courtesy of the Regnitz Cathedral. So 36 longbowmen, now up to 45 archers. He understands he just needs to keep pushing. He doesn't know what his opponent's doing, right? I think that is a sin on both sides, is the scout vision is limited. You can see that Grandmaster hasn't even been probing for vision. Meanwhile, Matisse, despite spamming out scouts, because they're now all dedicated to gathering up the game here, right, hunting the deer, he hasn't been sending any in to see what his opponent's doing. So he doesn't even know at what point his opponent has stopped pushing longbowmen, right? Like, for all he knows, there could be 20 longbowmen here, but also, for all he knows, there could be 40, 50 longbowmen. And that completely changes the way you play this stage in the game. Because one opens up an opportunity to aggress your opponent, the other one forces you to spam out a crap ton more archers because you're paranoid about being attacked yourself. And I don't think we're going to see scouts on the other side, by the way. We're just seeing the standardized move out of England, straight into farms as quickly as possible. Once you've led the berry bushes, you've done your sheep, you don't hang around on anything else. Like, it's not the way England plays. You get benefits as the age go on with your gathering rates, remember. If you're near mills, you can see the number here. You get 15, 20, 25%, 30% increased harvest rate. So by the time you're late castle getting ready for Imperial Age, it starts to compete with most other like benefits that civs get on the food gathering rates. But before that, it can feel a bit wonky. We're seeing the issue, right? This is my worry right now. Grandmaster, I feel like he's misread this. In his paranoia, he's spam longbowman. I think the moment you saw you were behind on the archer front and you saw a probe and attack, The next move from there should have been to keep scouts aggressively placed and try to, like, save some resources, right? Because to build these longbowmen doesn't take long, and it's going to be home field advantage if your opponent attacks you. But you need to give yourself breadth. You need to give yourself room to tech up. Instead, he's remained paranoid in his base, and look what the outcome is. Look at this move. Matisse, already on his way up now. After all that aggression, this might not look a great timing, right? 15 minutes-ish for Castle Age, but considering the amount of military units that have been built up to this point, this is fantastic. Also, don't be confused. Archers don't build racks. This is just there's 1 or 2 villagers amongst them. It's quite funny. It just genuinely looks like the archers have built racks here. Yeah, guys, that's the new buff for HRE. Because Soldier want more Soldier, so it makes sense that Soldier is able to build racks to recruit more Soldier. All right, Matisse. Here comes the engagement. Tech up, and this is a problem for Grandmaster. Numbers might be slightly on his side. No, he's behind on it. And look at the micro. Matisse is outdoing him right now. He's attacking multiple targets quicker than his opponent. And it's giving him the edge. He's drawing it back, though. Longbows with that 1 extra damage is making a difference right now. But it's going to be so few archers left. There's going to be no edge here for Grandmaster. He's trying to get the outpost down, but it's too little, too late. He's got no archers left by the time it's going to be up. And Matisse, in the meantime, churns out more to replace what he's losing. Remember, they come to the fight quicker, not only because he's on the home field, but because they move 0.12 tiles per second quicker. And even the man-at-arms coming out now. He says, what up? Slam dunks with the sword. He says, get the hell off of our turf. This is our base, our home. Afuera. Doggy out. Doggy will leave. Trade-wise, evening up reasonably for Grandmaster, please. But now the difference is going to be that you can easily upgrade these if you want, right? You can make these archers better. You can also now start to push out the man-at-arms in force. And in the meantime, this fight in the center is just distracting your opponent while you now gather up the relics. And I believe, yeah, one's about to be banked. And once you get that surplus, oh my, are you in trouble with your Grandmaster, please? Grandmaster, please. I mean, I don't know. Does this work in other games, folks, in other RTSs? Does just spamming the one-trick pony of Longbows get you Grandmaster? Because so far, all I've seen from this guy on this channel is exactly this. Me have Longbow, me smash. But the moment he runs into a wall, he's the one with a headache because he cannot headbutt his way through it. And that is what we're starting to see. Now, he has got the advantage for the next 2 minutes. It's just a case of what he does with it. The problem that is in existence right now for Matisse is Matisse, he needed that movement speed, right? But I think, yeah, he's got it now. He's got the juiced up movement speed. Now he'll be able to push out man-at-arms, and they'll be able to gap close quick enough to kill off the longbows. Because now they have a huge edge. 1.12 compared to the 1.24. And then the archer chase down with the 1.38. That's a lot of numbers, but what we need to know is HRE go... And that's exactly what they're doing. They're in charge mode. 1.58 tiles being crossed a second. They're hesitant to engage around that fog. Once again, another villager coming out is going to be fail, and that's going to be another eco unit loss for him. And yes, these are still early man-at-arms, I know, but they're tanky enough, and they do distract, they do some damage. He needs another racks to be able to upgrade them. That's the problem he's encountering at this second. Instead, he's going for some knights as well. Remember, he can afford that now with the gold trickle. And into the fogs they go. Most of the archers gone, but this should just support a man-at-arms switch over more than being prepped in the meantime. And you're just not replacing longbowmen quick enough. Remember, like, you've even been forced to go into a double archery range drop to just keep the longbowmen coming because you have nothing to compete with. And although it takes time, yes, you clean up these archers, but once you reach like a massive 8 to 10 man-at-arms, that's where Grandmaster is going to suffer here. And once again, Matisse backs him off. He doesn't need to gain ground right now. He just needs to push back slightly. And I do expect more racks to be coming out soon. It's actually going to be more archery ranges. These are upgraded to veteran now, right? So now they have the edge. 8 damage compared to the measly 7. Not to mention the additional 10 health. So now Grandmaster, well, he's hanging in this by a thread. And the problem I see is Grandmaster has given himself no wiggle room. This has been a non-stop Zerg. Everything just pushed out. No opportunity to pivot means he's not ready for a tech up at all. And if he's going for horsemen, if he starts building horsemen here, I'm going to call it preemptively, guys. I mean, this is not the solution right now. Dropping a stable like this is not how you get back into this game. Meanwhile, on the other side, Matisse, he's close to being able to have enough for Imperial Age. Yeah, he just needs to sort his food and he's good to go. He can do what he wants. He could actually be doubling up on the Ages here. He could be Imperial Age, and Grandmaster could still be in Feudal. That's how disgusting this matchup gets if you fail to keep up as England. And that's exactly what's happening. Oh, we've got 28 Longbowmen, 30 rather. So about 20 archers and 10 man-at-arms. That's good enough if Matisse wants to force a fight, but he doesn't have to. Here we go. In again. Remember, the gap closed so quickly with 1.38 movement. Straight in, forcing the villagers away again. Remember, that's just more eco damage done every time. You can already see Grandmaster, please. He has a free eco advantage, but he's less efficient than the HRE player. And now the man-at-arms gap closing here. They have been upgraded now, 12 damage per strike, but once again, backing away. Not the best of trades. Kind of keeps getting played into that fog. He needs to be careful. He could be going for a Mangonel, and that would be a huge booster. I'm kind of surprised he still hasn't got it. Right? Just make room in it. Get that Siege Workshop down. I know it's a bit pricey on the wood front, but it could genuinely just win you the game. In with the man-at-arms. Still focusing out those archers before trying to draw away. But once the man-at-arms are on top of you, keep in mind that they can stay on top of you, right? And now it's going to cause the anarchy. Now up to 14. That's been the difference. Every time, Matisse has lost the archer army, but the men-at-arms army keeps growing. And now it's up to 14, 16 now. I don't know if you can keep this up as Grandmaster, please. And once you're in the fog as well, you lose full vision game, right? That means you don't have that edge of that range. That's why this outpost not going down, right? Matisse denying that. That was so critical. He was willing to throw bodies at it because if you get the vision game around that forestry area, it becomes a problem. Matisse can't use the advantage of man-at-arms anymore. And instead, the vision game and the range of those longbows will just shred you. Now with that breathing room, should be able to get more techs if he so chooses. Could end up going for the two-handed, but I don't think he feels pressured for it. And Knight's raiding in the back as well. Matisse, what a play. Only one stable, remember, but he's able to afford that churn out of Knights. We said he's got ridiculous gold surplus. It's just his food that needs to transition. And now, this is where it's weakest, right? Within the next 2 minutes, see him boom up. Because at the moment, he has to get down all these farmlands. His people aren't working. They're not gathering the food. But once that's in place, he could easily afford to go up into Imperial Age within the next 3-4 minutes. We'll distract the entire Lombo army. I mean, if you want, you can just chill and you can genuinely boom now. Like, you're a stable number, right? 24 man-at-arms, 19 archers. No sign of your opponent actually boosting up. You must have noticed that the gold is barely being touched. There's so few people working on it. And in the meantime, gathering even more carcasses. That will give him the influx of food in the meantime, while he's still switching over to remaining farmlands. And I just don't see the move right now. Grandmaster, like, even if you save up now. And he's not. That's the worrying part. He's dropping the racks now. I've got a bad feeling, guys. I think this is about spears. Like, he's going to try and drop spears. And if he does, he's going to drop this game. Because right now, he thinks that Matisse is building into Knights. We know the truth, right? Because we see God Vision. The problem Grandmaster's had is he hasn't seen the base in ages. So from his mindset, he sees a few Knights. He's like, oh, he must have like 3 or 4 stables now. So I'm just going to counter out with 2 of these and start spamming out. Thank God. Thank God. Okay, he maybe has a breath of life in this. He's not doing it. I was so worried he was going to the spin. It's going to be upgrading for the man-at-arms, but you're outclassed. And if you show this once to Matisse, remember, his man-at-arms counter you out. They can get the maces, which gives them the bonus damage against other man-at-arms, because it gives them plus damage against heavy. And at that stage, like, once again, you're outclassed. And once again, you will not have answered the issue of man-at-arms. And it's the paranoia he plays with. It's that vision, that lack of vision, once again, tripping up Grandmaster, meaning that he's not taking this opportunity, this breathing space, to go for castle. And the problem he has now is even if he did stop and do that, his opponent, Matisse, is going to understand if his opponent's hit castle, that means he hasn't been pushing units constantly. So he's weak, and that's when he'll strike. Look at how pathetic this damage is. 30 longbowmen, and it barely matters. Agincourt lied to us. Matisse. Some people are wondering why he's holding back, why he's not pushing in. Why would you need to? At what stage does England come back into this? An hour and a half game? The beauty of HRE is you don't pick the map dry as quickly as other civs, right? Because you're playing on a stacked economy, you switch on the farm, you keep condensed, you also have the treacle for the gold. So you can kind of just look for that Imperial Age rush timing if you want, right? If your opponent gives you that edge. Instead, though, now he's going in. And this is too much. I do not see how Grandmaster does this. In fact, I'm surprised he hasn't hit the GG right now. He's wrapping around the back with the longbows, but even if you get rid of the archer battalion, what the hell are you going to do about these man-at-arms? Other than die to them. And give them, like, right now, these man-at-arms are so strong, they could rip your arms off and then beat you to death with them, being a true man-at-arms. First longbow battalion gone. This wraparound was too slow. I mean, maybe if you were HRE, maybe if you had 1.38 movement speed per second, you would have made the gap close in time. But now all you've done is ensured you're going to lose both sides of the longbow army. And with that force being wiped, this might just be the game. I'm surprised he still hasn't tapped out. Mistake being made here by Grandmaster. He never gave himself room, never gave himself breathing room to try and tech up. He was all in on this longbow rush, and the baffling part is despite being all in, he never actually utilized rams. He never got to a position where he could actually pressure directly onto the economy or directly onto the military infrastructure. And that means Matisse just cruises through to what looks like a completely easy win, right? And don't take credit away from Matisse, by the way. This is him showing just how damn good he is at HRE. There's a lot of players that would have ran across too soon, or they would have been too greedy on the eco. Think how many players would not open up with 3 archery ranges. But HRE, Matisse, he understands it. He's experienced losses as much as he's experienced wins. He knows that in that type of situation, that matchup against the longbows, you need to be matching the pace. You need to be defending, because understand that if you are matching the pace of the longbows, not only are your archers cheaper, but you have a more efficient economy as the HRE, courtesy of your 40% increased gathering rates and capacity. Right? It means that you're going to have the edge over England, and you're going to have that wiggle room to scale up while matching the output. And that's exactly what we see here. Amazing plays out of Matisse to close this game and slam dunk give Grandmaster, please, all the way down to give Grandmaster nope. Or if you prefer, give Civil, please, because that, honestly, if we had a rank system, kind of feels like he's on his way to silver at this rate. Because every time we see him, he's definitely getting the rough end of the stick, right? He's not having a good time. These England longbow rushes are being countered by China, HRE now. Who's going to stomp him next? I don't know. Roos maybe? Like, take your pick. This must be working some of the time, because if I look at his rank right now, if you're wondering where he's at, give Grandmaster, please. He's sitting 125th. So he's having some luck with this, but every time we see him, it just looks underwhelming and one-dimensional, and it can't be understated, after the talk we gave at the start of the game, how important transitions are in Age of Empires if you want to take the lead and get the edge.